to this minimum wage announcement from Barack Obama, haven't you? Who does it affect, is the question, isn't it?
Well, what President Obama has announced is an increase in the minimum wage for contract federal workers. That's around 2 million people in all, but the vast majority of those are already paid more than, that minimum wage, what Barack Obama wants to raise to $10.10 an hour. The statutory minimum wage in the United States is $7.25, although some states do have a higher rate than that. It has to be said the federal rate has remained unchanged since 2007, and Barack Obama has now said that he wants this new rate to be pushed through Congress for all states, so the minimum rate will rise to $10.10 per hour for everyone. That would affect the currently 4 million people in the United States who are being paid the current minimum wage. It's a good time now for Barack Obama to think about doing this, though, as the unemployment rate is coming down. The argument, of course, against raising the minimum wage is that it costs businesses more and may cost jobs. But if you look at how the unemployment rate has progressed in the United States, it's been falling steadily in recent months, down to 6.7% most recently. Of those. So this is an opportune time for President Obama to make these changes.
I'm going to stay in the US for the next story. Authorities in New York, this one, they've been talking about how they might regulate the digital currency Bitcoin.
Yeah, this after Charlie Shrem, who runs a Bitcoin exchange in New York, was charged with conspiracy to launder money using the currency. The New York Department of Financial Services held a public hearing on Monday to discuss how Bitcoin might be regulated. The city authorities are considering using bit licenses for companies that trade using the digital currency in an effort to control it. Now, among those attending were the Winklevoss twins, who backed Charlie Shrem's company. Bitcoin's value has exploded in the last year. It's currently worth, one Bitcoin is currently worth about $825 US, but its volatility is one of the reasons why authorities want to control it.
There is not currently a robust regulatory regime to help spot red flags and root out illegal activity. Right now, the regulation of virtual currency industry is still akin to a virtual Wild West. That lack of regulation, however, is simply not tenable for the long term, and I think it's already starting to change.
Now, after the battering that currencies have seen in recent days, particularly from emerging markets, Turkey's central bank is the latest to have raised interest rates in response to that currency crisis. And at an emergency meeting last night, the Turkish central bank hiked all of its main rates in response to the plunging value of the lira. Overnight lending rates went up from 7.75% to 12%, while overnight borrowing rates went up from 3.5% to 8%. The lira rose against the dollar after that announcement, after having fallen to a 3, hitting a record low, in fact, in trading on Monday.
And of course, that's been the major issue affecting the markets in the past week, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, now that decision in Turkey came too late for the close of Wall Street last night, but a similar decision over in India had helped to restore confidence to the markets. You can see a picture of green across the US markets there, helped by corporate results, positive corporate results from the likes of Pfizer as well. Investors in the United States will be watching the Federal Reserve meeting closely too. We'll find out later this Wednesday if the Fed is to further reduce its stimulus program. It's already down to $75 billion a month. We'll be seeing if it comes down any further. Over in Asia, that decision by Turkey and also that optimism generally spilling over into the markets there. The Nikkei up by over 2%, shares in Hong Kong, and the Hang Seng also up by 1%.
Now, we got some big company results out of the US last night, haven't we?
Yeah, chief among them figures from the internet giant Yahoo. Revenues for them fell by 6% in the last 3 months as prices for online ads fell. Earnings were hit by slowing growth of the Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba, which Yahoo owns almost a quarter of. Profits at Alibaba rose an impressive 58%, but that was less than in the previous 3 months. That hit Yahoo's shares, and after hours trading they were down around 3%. And the car maker Ford reported higher than expected profits for the last 3 months. Earnings rose 90% thanks to a number of tax gains at the company. But it's warned that it's facing increased price competition in the coming months, particularly from Japanese manufacturers who are benefiting from the cheaper value of the yen. It's also forecasting losses in South America, partly due to price controls in Venezuela placed on cars.
Now, finally, the Chinese, they've stolen a very, very, very important title from the French. It's an alcohol title, isn't it?
Yeah, a survey from the Wine and Spirits Association, Vinexpo, says that China has overtaken France in the number of the bottles of red wine that it consumes. The Chinese drank almost 1.9 billion bottles last year, up 130% over the past 5 years. That puts France in second place and Italy in third. Now, Vinexpo says this is down partly to the increased wealth in China, but also because of a cultural preference for the colour red over the colour white, as the colour red is the colour of luck and good fortune in China, which might explain why red wine is perhaps being drunk more than
popular
white.
than the red. I like my red wine in the winter, white in the summer. Just traditional.
Bit of advice, is it?
Yes, exactly. Apparently there's outrage in the gallery because the French working in there pushing the buttons can't quite believe that story.
Well, there's only one way to remedy that, really, isn't there?
They'll have to drink more, but after the shift.
And sensibly, of course.
Exactly. Very well put. Stephen Carroll with Business News and a little bit of life advice as well. Coming up for you, we've got a European